This is Boston Lanka News, bringing you news, views and entertainment from Boston and USA. I'm Vayoni Dimel. Ishani Premaratne is a Sri Lankan origin pre-medical student at Harvard University. She is passionate about global healthcare delivery, women's empowerment and social entrepreneurship. She has been chosen as 2014 Glamour's top 10 college women. Ishani joins with us from Mexico. Ishani, you became Glamour's top 10 college women in 2014. In fact, you shared this honor with your twin sister. Could you share more information about that?
Sure. So every year, Glamour magazine honors in its top 10 college women contest women who are doing amazing things in their various fields, whatever that might be. So in this class, we have people who are interested in space studies. If people are interested in mathematics, people are interested in communication studies. So people from all across the United States, 10 women who the magazine thinks that is really making kind of an impact in their field. So my sister and I are really honored to be two of the 10 who have been honored in this class.
What was your initial reaction or response when you first heard the news?
We were absolutely amazed and excited, of course, and excited to have been honored together. We knew that the chances of that happening were very, very small, because I think the only other time twins have been honored, they've been honored together as one of the 10 spots. So this is the first time that you have twins being honored separately, and certainly the first time that they are Sri Lankans. We've always been very much attached to our upbringing, kind of partly in Sri Lanka, and also the influence that our parents have had in teaching us about the way they grew up and all the time that we've spent back at home. So we were very excited to have that honor and also be representing Sri Lanka kind of at a national United States magazine.
You're a student at Harvard University. Could you tell us a little bit about your studies and your life at Harvard?
Sure. So I am a pre-medical student. I'm in my third year at Harvard, and I'm also studying a field called medical anthropology, which means that we really focus on the intersection of kind of the science, the hard science classes, with also the social sciences and how medical practitioners can better reach their patients in different contexts around the world. My day-to-day at Harvard involves not only my classes, but also a variety of extracurricular activities, some of which I work on with my sister. But currently, I'm actually studying abroad and spending the semester in Chiapas, Mexico, where I'm working with an organization called Partners in Health to work to deliver better healthcare kind of on the ground in a very rural, resource-constrained setting.
Can you talk about the project you started in Sri Lanka, Grow Lanka, to help war widows in Sri Lanka?
Sure. So my sister and I both co-founded Grow Lanka, which is an SMS system that helps to connect unemployed people in kind of the communities that we work with, and especially war widows, to job opportunities. It all really started kind of before our freshman year at Harvard, where we had our first exposure to the northern part of the country, and a lot of the stories that we heard were really, not only heartbreaking, but also we saw a lot of potential for two young people to make an impact. We thought that going back to Harvard and being exposed to a lot of the resources at our innovation lab and through classes that are focused on social entrepreneurship, we thought that we could take a system to the country that would be able to connect these women to a resource that they really needed, which was jobs. So after that, we worked with our professors, we worked with various technologists at the innovation lab. We did our research, and we continued to go back to Sri Lanka to see how we could best implement the system and fashion it in a way that would be useful, especially knowing that we as students who had spent the majority of our lives in the United States, we'd have to be cognizant of kind of the post-war environment, and also the very sensitive different community dynamics that we were stepping into. So I think my sister and I really focused on trying to make sure that we were talking to the people that we hope to help and not just trying to design something that we didn't know if they could use.
What insight or new understanding you got after working with women in Sri Lanka, especially those who lost their loved ones during the war?
Absolutely. I mean, for first of all, I would say that Nash and I definitely spent a lot of almost every summer of our childhood in Sri Lanka, and we absolutely loved our time there, and we're always waiting to go back. But we had never spent time in the northern part of the country, and a lot of that had to do with, of course, kind of the violence that was associated with the war. In going back when we were older and post 2009, my first impression of the women was really how incredibly strong they were. Certainly, they'd been through a lot, but they showed a lot of agency, not only in their households but in their communities, and a real desire to get back on their feet, to support their families, no matter how difficult that might be going forward. In the United States, we've never had a female head of state. And a lot of times, especially now, there's a big conversation going on about women's empowerment and kind of the ability that women have to, as they say, break through the glass ceiling in the workplace and really, fight for their own rights. And it's interesting. It was interesting to me to go to Sri Lanka, in a place where I hadn't heard so much of that conversation, and yet to see women who almost seemed to have more kind of power within them than I had seen in some of my colleagues back home. So, overall, I was really impressed and inspired by these women, and my sister and I were eager to do something to help.
Are there any experiences or an encounter that you can share while working with women in North?
Absolutely. So there was, Nash and I have been going back at least once a year to Sri Lanka. And there was one trip in particular where, early on, and this was before we had really, we were still trying to figure out what we could do and how we could help. And, one of the women that I was speaking to said, well, there's so many people that come here, but no one ever stays. No one, you're not going to come back. It was essentially what she was saying to me. And I didn't, at first I was taken aback, but I couldn't fault her for saying that, because traditionally NGOs and other groups, as much as they might help, generally they're only there for a short amount of time. And we see that in a lot of post-crisis situations. But I was really struck by what she said, because it also kind of strengthened the commitment in me to say, I will come back. And I've made a commitment not only to you, but to your community and to your potential to improve your livelihood going forward. And that really was the beginning of this project, and my sister and I's continual kind of commitment to going back to Sri Lanka and making sure that we make good on our promise. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to be people that only step in for a short while and don't kind of follow through on the investment and kind of our belief in the potential that these women have.
Could you talk about Synergy, a social enterprise incubator that you are part of?
Sure. So at Harvard, during our freshman year, there was an incubator. It's called Synergy, as you mentioned, that was designed to help students focus on social entrepreneurship projects that they might be interested in. There were mentorship sessions. There were kind of advice given by people who had already been successful in starting their own enterprises, with the aim of helping students to hone these innovative ideas into real projects that they could implement on the ground. I learned a lot during it was a couple weeks kind of a course, and I really learned a lot. And was inspired to take the learning that I had gained in the classroom out into the real world. And in this case, Grow Lanka really gained a lot from my experiences there, as I was able to apply what I learned directly to the work that I was able to do on the ground in Sri Lanka.
You're the co-founder of a women's empowerment blog entitled Saying Eye to Eye. Explain about this blog and how it empowers women.
So I'm a big believer in the power of journalism. to reach certainly more to a wider audience than I could ever reach just face to face talking to people. I've always loved to write, and a blog is a more informal platform to reach people, around the world. One of the things that we do with Seeing Eye to Eye is the name of the blog, after our names, Ishani and my sister's name, Inesha. But the idea is that we feature different stories from women on Harvard's campus of what they're doing over the summer, for example, where many students have an internship experience, to share the struggles that they faced and the obstacles that they overcame and their perspective on college life. Because we know that through our blog, there are younger students who can read kind of these stories and really learn something. In fact, we've had plenty of people reach out to us and say, I read this story and so I was inspired to do something similar, or I didn't think that I could do this, but in reading about another woman who did it, who wasn't afraid to go for that job or to reach that new goal, I was able to do the same. So it's always gratifying to hear how your words can reach a wider audience and kind of spread that message that really anything is possible.
Contact Glamour Express for all your shipping needs. Glamour Express. You are very much interested in working on post-conflict development. I assume this comes with your experiences with Sri Lanka. Could you talk about this passion of yours?
Well, in post-conflict situations, as I mentioned, healthcare is often, it's just one piece of the puzzle, right? Because doctors, when they're seeing patients, in the consultation room, often they're having to respond to a variety of other challenges that happened earlier down the line. For example, patients that suffer with malnutrition. Why is that? Maybe they've lost their job, they can't afford basic food needs for themselves and their children. They go without basic medical care, and then ultimately they may suffer a more serious medical condition down the line. So ultimately, I think, in post-conflict situations especially, doctors are tasked with working with a variety of other aid actors to deliver care. It's not just about providing a diagnosis, but it's about figuring out how we can improve water systems to make sure that various kind of infections that won't take root in a community. It's about ensuring that there's more jobs available, about making sure that patients have transport and viable roads to get to a clinic if they need one. So in Sri Lanka, I think all of those kinds of challenges exist in much the same way that they would in any other post-conflict situation. You have to address not only the medical needs of the patient, but also the structural inequalities that have ultimately led to their medical condition.
You have traveled widely. Could you share those experiences? How those experiences made your life richer and widen your horizon?
First, I would say that a lot of these traveling experiences, it's true, as you say, that I've traveled quite a bit in my time during school, and I'm so grateful to Harvard for making that possible, and supporting kind of student programs like that. But one experience that I'll talk about in particular would be the 3 months that I spent in Tanzania following my first year at Harvard. And I was working with a nonprofit organization that helped to not only deliver healthcare, but also we're helping to deliver a new computer system that would ease communication between doctors and patients. Because what we saw was there was a huge drop-off in adherence to treatment because, patients after coming to the hospital once, they weren't able to come again due to the cost of transport. And so this kind of electronic system would make it easier for doctors to communicate with their patients day in and day out. And that experience really sparked my interest in global health, and going back to Harvard during my second year, I took a series of classes in global health, in various kind of hard sciences related to my pre-medical studies. And I was inspired about the potential for technology to change the healthcare landscape. And that, of course, led to other projects and the work that I'm now doing in Mexico. And and also the time that I spent in China teaching at a young leaders forum with high school students in Beijing. So all of these experiences, I would say, are really interrelated, and one has led to the other in one way or another, as I've been inspired by kind of the context and the people that I've interacted with in one country, and really been amazed by how that knowledge can transfer to a completely different country context, kind of in some of my other experiences.
You have an interest in journalism. I read somewhere that you would like to host public health segments on TV. Tell us about this passion of yours.
Well, I've always loved to write, and I think I go back to the blog. I think writing has a real power to engage a much wider audience. But at the end of the day, I think about my interest in being a medical practitioner, and that is first and foremost kind of the goal of my studies, and what I hope to do one day is to see patients one on one. But I see my interest in broadcast journalism and in sharing healthcare stories with a wider audience is really an extension of that same goal of educating patients. Whether I'm seeing a patient one on one as a healthcare practitioner, or whether I'm sharing a story about a new discovery in the medical field, a new drug or a new surgical intervention, via journalism. At the end of the day, my goal is the same. It's to educate patients and to make healthcare information more accessible. That's something that I've seen translate across all of my academic experiences and also my international experiences as a student thus far, and something that I hope will translate into my future career.
Doctors Without Borders is a group that mostly works in conflict situations around the world. In one of your profiles, it says that you would like to be involved in such work. Don't you think it's a bit dangerous?
I'm very interested in kind of post-conflict rehabilitation and also the healthcare needs in those situations. Certainly, there's dangers associated depending on where you are and kind of what the circumstances are. But based on my work in Sri Lanka and kind of the time that I've spent in other countries, I think as a healthcare practitioner, I've seen the doctors that I've observed and worked with, really making an impact in a way that's much deeper than I think I would be able to make personally, at a larger hospital in my hometown. A lot of the patients that you would see in those situations are patients who suffer from a variety of other complications that are not just medically related. They're facing a lot of other challenges in their life related to their housing, education, ability to feed themselves and their children. And all of these make for perhaps a more difficult diagnosis at times, but also really challenges the healthcare practitioner to be creative and to think about kind of the entire the holistic sense and well-being of the patient, and not just the medical aspects. At the end of the day, that's what excites me most, I think, about the healthcare field, this chance to make a patient's life better and not just to send them home with a different medication. Healthcare really is a holistic discipline, and that's something that I very much believe in.
Finally, Ishani, tell us about your plans after graduation, short-term plans and long-term plans.
So after graduation, I hope to go to medical school, and that's more of my immediate plans. But as for the year that I will spend, before medical school starts, that's still to be decided. I'm very excited by the work of Partners in Health, where I mentioned I'm working with their branch in Mexico currently. Also excited by the work of Doctors Without Borders. So I would hope to spend that year gaining experience in global healthcare delivery and learning about the more creative aspects in really resource-constrained environments. In the long term, that I hope that my career will involve both medicine and also journalism as a way of educating patients, about their healthcare needs and about the best way that they can make sure that they care for themselves and for their families.
Ishani, you really brought fame to our motherland, Sri Lanka. Congratulations and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much for your support and for reaching out. It's my pleasure.
That concludes our news edition. We meet you again with another news edition of News views and entertainment from Boston and USA. Till then, goodbye.